Hello, welcome to the 2022 Housing Inventory Count, or HIC survey training. My name is Max Burns. I'm a senior coordinator with HMIS at Chicago. Today's training will be pretty short. We're going to be going over the changes to the process and kind of highlight what's different between this year and last year. Some helpful tips, review the timeline for this process to wrap up the rest of this month, and then also resource and contact information for myself and my colleagues at Chicago. So to start, as a reminder, the pre-HIC closes on the 26th. So please submit a pre-HIC survey for each one of your projects. The following day, on the 27th, is the actual point in time count or PIT count. January 28th is when the survey will open that we're going to review today with this training. And then all responses, whether you receive an SQL report to verify or if you're a non-participating provider, will be due back to Chicago by February 3rd. All follow-up kind of outreach associated with pre-HIC and HIC conducted by Chicago will be wrapped up by February 24th is our goal this year. So just a quick reminder for folks, or for folks who are new to the HIC and pre-HIC, these are just acronyms and definitions that are involved when we're talking about this particular process. So the HIC is mandated by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. The pre-HIC is a local term where we have taken the kind of standard process for the housing inventory count and broken up into two phases, the pre-HIC and the HIC itself. Both of this kind of both of those processes are important and kind of make up what used to be a standalone process a few years ago, excuse me. But HIC always coincides with what's known as the PIT, or the point in time count, which occurs at the end of each January. It's a requirement by HUD to occur at least every 2 years, but the city of Chicago conducts the PIT annually. All of our data that we collect for both of those processes are submitted to HDX, which is an online portal that manages a lot of data transfers from community to HUD. The PIT itself and the HIC are organized by what's known as continuum of cares, or COCs, or the continuum of care, not to be confused with the program that funds the majority of the permanent housing in the United States, but the local planning network that you hear Chicago and many community members talk about frequently. And then the data that's collected from the PIT and the HIC are evaluated and measured against what's known as the LSA, or the Longitudinal Systems Analysis. So the PIT and the HIC are kind of a snapshot, and the LSA is a broader kind of evaluation of data. This year, for example, HUD is asked to review, I think, 3 years worth of data, whereas the PIT and HIC, for example, will only occur and worry about data from a specific night. So that's just a list of a few terms and acronyms, keep everyone kind of familiar. Or kind of on the same page. I've kind of overviewed some of these kind of points about the purpose or the requirements in the history. But one key point to identify here that I haven't mentioned before is that the bedded unit inventory data that's collected through the HIC is very important locally for our coordinated entry system. It helps us identify if we're missing or lack maybe particular housing interventions that are needed for different portions of the population that we're trying to serve, our unhoused neighbors, and having an annual assessment of the kind of the snapshot of the landscape for our inventory helps. And also this information helps us make informed decisions about how to move our system forward, what kind of opportunities maybe we as a community should pursue, where we should focus our efforts and our resources in the future. So this is a text taken from an email that was sent to the community back in December, I think, or maybe it was late November, just outlining the major changes to the 2022 HIC for our community. So the highlights of that are for projects that are permanent housing projects, so PSH, OPH, maybe PH, no disability required, any project, that is considered permanent housing, will be required to participate in the HIC as usual. But where possible, we will use monthly SQL utilization reports. That's the bulk of what we'll talk about today later on, to confirm the occupancy and vacancy data that was in the system the night of the count and presented to the community to verify. For providers that are not able to participate in that, whether they're maybe DV providers or they simply just don't use HMIS for tracking data records, client data and records, they will have an alternate methodology to respond. That'll be basically the same as what was used in 2021 and 2022. All projects that are ES, TH, and SH, they will not be required to submit a HIC survey this year. We will collect their occupancy and vacancy data through the PIT. As a reminder for the community, just to again level set, HUD has very specific definitions of what a bed and what a unit are. Those are those definitions. So a bed is a piece of furniture used for sleep, typically a framework with a mattress. And the definition that is usually kind of maybe more loose or flexible is the definition of a unit. It's intended to be considered as a separate living quarter. A single room can be seen as a separate living quarter or an apartment. Our job at All Chicago at this time each year is to help providers kind of convert or translate maybe, how their project operates into these kind of like very strict definitions. So if this definition of a unit is confusing, or if you have a, internal as an organization, your team has a different definition of what a unit is, contact us at All Chicago, help desk at allchicago.org. We can work together to try and more align what your belief of a unit or however units are working at your project with, how they're reflected in Service Point and through this process to HUD. The first of, I think, 2 reminders just for the due dates and how many of these you will need to complete. So a separate HIC survey must be completed for each of your projects that are operated by your agency. Each of those surveys should be submitted to All Chicago via Alchemer, the software, the survey application we're using, no later than 5 p.m. on Wednesday, February 3rd. As a minor plug, please complete your pre-HIC surveys before January 26th, which is next Wednesday, by 5 p.m. as well. That's not on the screen, but that's my chance to give one last plea, I suppose. So, getting down to brass tacks of the actual HIC survey itself and what you'll need to complete between January 28th and February 3rd. It doesn't matter if you're a participating provider or a non-participating provider. The login process is the same. You'll use the same survey. Your login, username, and password are the exact same as they are for the pre-HIC. It's your project's HMIS ID. So for this practice one, I used a temporary login of 1. So my fake project had a username or HMIS ID of 1 and a password of 1, for example. Once you log into the survey, you'll be asked to provide contact information about who you are as the respondent and a secondary contact in case we have follow-up questions and we're unable to reach you. It's the very similar fields and format as all of our other HIC surveys this year, years past. I'll be pretty familiar. The HIC survey will ask providers either to verify the data that they're provided via the monthly SQL reports or report the number of folks served in the household breakdown. The first section, section 1, participating or non-participating projects, is very important. Kind of detailed on the next slide. And then after section 1, if you're participating project, but maybe the data that comes out of the SQL report isn't accurate, or you're a non-participating project, you'll have opportunities to give us, the total number of folks you serve and the breakdown by unit and bed. And we'll go into detail of those now. Section 1. So participating or non-participating. Alchemware uses conditional logic based on the responses of this section to provide you the appropriate version of the survey for your project. Your agency was provided an email on January 7th about what survey format our team, so at All Chicago, our H1S team, expects your project to complete. Those emails were sent basically to your ATA with some minor exceptions. Or if you're a non-participating provider, whatever email I had on record from your HIC last year. If you received monthly SQL utilization reports, so in the future on January 28th, for example, if you receive monthly SQL utilization reports to reference and they are accurate, the survey will be complete after this section 1. So we'll have a couple more questions, and then if everything looks good in the system, then you're done. If you do not receive a report or your report is inaccurate, there's going to be prompted follow-up questions for the rest of the survey to be completed. Okay. So for ATAs, this will look pretty familiar. For non-ATAs, this may look kind of foreign, but it should be. I'll explain it what it is. So this is a screenshot from an Excel file of the utilization report for a project. What's listed on here are, it's broken down by beds on top and units on the bottom, and it has the number of the beds and units that are in HMIS, and then the number of enrollments associated to those beds and units, and then it gives a percentage, which is just the enrolled divided by the total. The minimum percentage values and the maximum percentage values on the left are bands of tolerable amount, levels of utilization based on the Chicago local data quality process. You can find additional details about that on the help desk if you're interested. The Excel file will have 2 tabs. This is the screenshot from the summary, and the secondary tab will have a list of all of the clients that are pulled into this report by head of household, user IDs, HMS IDs, excuse me, and some additional information about each of those enrollments. Quick side note, this came up in the live webinar. The number that you see that's in enrollment may not reflect the number that are housed. That could be due to a discrepancy in housing move-in dates. If you suspect that is the case, please contact us at helpdesk@allchicago.org. Paul, I, or Alex are all going to be around and able to take those questions and assist you. But generally, the projects that will receive this will be the vast majority. What you can expect is, what I envision is you'll open up these reports as you receive them, or as you receive them, you have Alchemware open, and when you log in, the first question you'll receive is you will verify whether or not you have SQL reports for the project you're responding about. If you do have a report and you are a participating provider, you would indicate yes on question 2. This project was provided a monthly SQL utilization report for January 27th to verify by email. And assuming that is a yes, kind of highlighted above, you'll be prompted with this follow-up question. Was the monthly SQL utilization report accurate? Did it accurately reflect how your project operated on the night of January 27th? And by accurate, we mean the report matched the number of beds and units your project operated and the number of clients and households served the night of January 27th. If that is accurate, you would indicate yes, kind of what's highlighted in the blue box on the screen here, and then you would hit next. Now, if that is the case and there's no corrections that need to be made, your survey should automatically go to the end. That's the way that the logic is set up in Alchemer. That project would be completed. We'd have no additional requests for data for that particular project for this cycle of the 2020 second cycle. 2020. Why is the 2020? It's such a weird number. 2022 HIC cycle. Pardon me. Now, if you're missing a pre-HIC, that's a different question. We'll probably contact you, so please submit those in time. But assuming that, or maybe not assuming, but maybe the report isn't accurate, for example, you would indicate no on this question, and you'll be prompted to clarify what wasn't accurate or what wasn't right. Process in which you basically tell us that the report wasn't accurate is the exact same survey format that non-participating providers will use. So the remainder of this kind of presentation in the next couple slides are for providers who aren't participating or have inaccurate SQL reports. So first off, you're going to be prompted to give us some basic information about the night of the count on January 27th. So the first question would be, did individuals or families enter your project and become housed on, the night of January 27th, 2022? So this radio question allows you only one response. So you could either give a yes, folks entered the project and became housed the night of the count, no, no one entered the project and the project was full, or no, no one entered the project and it was not full. And then you will input the total number of clients served that night across all of your households. This data is really important because we use this total number of clients and this question to verify the data provided for the next two sections when we talk about bed and units. So please ensure that this is accurate. Okay, so the first of the two sections will be about units. The prompt questions are pretty basic. They're the same as years past. You're going to report the total number of occupied units. Then you're going to report the total number of households that are families, at least one adult and one child, how many of those units were occupied. And then the total number of units that were occupied that were children only or minors, some would say. You can only give numerical values for this. If you have questions about this, of course, contact us, but this should look pretty straightforward or pretty familiar. Same questions as last year. And then this set of questions basically repeats, but now it's specific to beds. So how many of your project's beds were occupied the night of the count? Of the total occupied beds, how many of those for families or, one household at least one child and one adult? And then finally, how many of those households were for children-only households? So again, some would say maybe minors, 18 or under. And that would then prompt you to review your submission. So what will come up on the screen is a list of all of the sections. So your responses for section 1, your responses for the night of the 27th, and occupancy and occupancy reports for your beds and units are each their own sections. What you input won't be very distinguishable between kind of what's kind of being pulled from Alchemer anyways. So make sure you kind of comb through if you want to. I would encourage that. I'd also encourage at this point to download that page as a PDF, whether it's like via a download link or like a button in your browser, or maybe you print it as a PDF. The system mechanism that Alchemer as a software platform uses to email your submissions is notoriously flagged as spam. I get many emails each year about I don't have my confirmations. So use this as your confirmation for your records internally. And at any point, if you want to go back and change what you submitted, you can just hit the back button if it doesn't look right. And the back button will be located in the bottom of the screen. So assuming you review your submission and it looks good, you would hit complete. You'll receive an automatic email from Alchemer confirming the submission, and it should include the PDF like I was saying, but I wouldn't rely on it for some reason that it tends to get flagged or it doesn't work out. This survey, I think all of our surveys now at this point have the save and continue function, or should. If for whatever reason you need it, it's this little gray bar at the top of the screen in your web browser. It'll say save and continue later on the right-hand side. When you click that, this box will magically appear on your screen just like it does in the PowerPoint presentation. Just put your work email in, or whatever email you would prefer, and it will send you a unique link to this survey to edit it later. So you don't need to save you need to have web browser tabs open for days, or if that's your style, that's what I do anyways. But if you want something more reliable, this is an option as well. Finally, that reminder, again, Wednesday, February 3rd, 5 p.m., all projects need to have a response, whether the provider providing or participating or non-participating, excuse me. And if any additional questions come up after reviewing this material, please contact us at helpdesk@allchicago.org. Thank you very much.